Story 1. Am I the a-hole for just posting my wife miscarried on my mom's social media after she announced my pregnancy? My wife was pregnant with our first child. We weren't telling anyone yet because it was early. My mom was over at our house and noticed some obvious clues of pregnancy. She asked about it and we were honest. We also asked her to please respect our wishes and not go telling people because it was early in the pregnancy and we wanted time to ourselves to absorb it. The pregnancy was unplanned but welcomed. My mom lasted 2 weeks before she started posting about becoming a grandmother. We hadn't told her yet we lost the baby. I was still feeling unalive inside when I saw her post, so I just commented, "Elise miscarried a week ago." I guess it took about an hour for my mom to see the comment and delete her post. We have been getting condolences, which we don't want, and my mom has been getting dumped on by friends and family for being so insensitive. She's mad at me for not telling her that we had lost her grandchild. I think I was an a-hole because I replied that I didn't want her blabbing my family's personal life again. She's crying, and my dad says that I have every right to be upset, but that I could have been nicer. I'm just so angry right now, I don't know how to feel. Am I the a-hole? Not really. You told her. Respect your wishes. This is your personal stuff. Maybe it affects family, but you made it clear. Please don't tell people. We don't want people knowing about this. Please don't tell them. And she just decided that meant please don't tell people for 2 weeks. And now your issues are out in the open, and you didn't want to deal with it, but now you're dealing with it. She could have respected your wishes. It's kind of on her that all the consequences come with this kind of an announcement, including the possible losses. I'm not thinking you're the a-hole here. Story 2. Going along with a sexist car salesman. My wife and I have used a salesman's sexism against him, and it was so satisfying. It was when we bought our first new car. We were nervous that we didn't know what we were doing, so we did a lot of research. It helps that my wife is a librarian. When we got to the dealer, the salesman would only talk to me. I was all buddy-buddy with the guy too, but he completely ignored my wife. We went along. The dealer was running a promotion where they would give you X amount of dollars for your trade-in, no matter what condition. If you can drive it on the lot kind of deal. Of course, they just don't discount the MSRP in those cases, so it's a gimmick. When we walked in, the salesman asked what car was ours parked outside, and then asked if we were trading it in. I said, no, we weren't trading that car in. You can see where this is going. As I said, we'd done our research and knew what a fair price was for the car we wanted. At the time, Edmunds had detailed dealer-level price information for many cars, or many new cars, including all the various ways a dealer gets paid and what their true costs are. The invoice price is not their true cost. I negotiated the price since he wouldn't talk to the wife, and we arrived at a number I thought was fair, actually. We got a good deal at that point. Everything was going smoothly as he wrote up our agreement until he confirmed that we didn't have a trade-in. I said, no, we were trading in a car, just not the one we drove into the dealer with. He literally froze for a few seconds, looking down at the form, his hand hovering over the page. He asked the make, model, and year of our trade-in, and when I told him, he sputtered and balked. The car we were trading in was on its last legs. I'd had it all through college, and it was old before I bought it. It was definitely past its prime. I said, I thought you were running a promotion where the quality of the trade-in doesn't matter. I asked him if he would have given us a higher price if he knew we had a trade-in. My wife said under her breath, "That's sleazy." He heard, as she intended him to. He then tried to renegotiate the price. We knew from our research that if they give us the price we had already agreed on, and they honored the trade-in deal, then they would be losing money. So we were willing to move a bit, but we wanted to take our time. He was visibly nervous. Every time he tried a new way of asking for a higher price, I would say something like, "I understand what you're saying," with a sympathetic look. Then I would look at my wife, and she would look back at me and silently shake her head no. I'd then look back at the salesman and shrug and say, "I don't think that's going to work." He was stuck. She was the one standing in the way of him getting out of his predicament. But he hadn't talked to her at all. He had barely even acknowledged her presence. He just couldn't start talking to her now when we were negotiating. Oh, and I even got to use the classic car salesman line, "What do I have to do for you to get me this car today?" We finally agreed to raise the price to an amount that, after figuring in the trade-in, was what we had thought was the break-even price. We hadn't expected to get that low of a price, and we also got them to install a nice aftermarket sound system. It's the best deal we've ever gotten on a new car. Honestly, we're not the best negotiators individually, but that day we made one hell of a team. Yep, definitely do your research. That's excellent that you knew the ins and outs of what was going on and you were able to find the right information and be able to make it work for you. And definitely put the pressure on this guy. I think it's a vindication for everybody who has ever had to deal with car salesmen before and not knowing what they're getting into. Story 3. I'm an adult, and my father put a GPS tracker on my car that he refuses to remove. I live in Philly. My father lives in New York, and the car has New York plates. I am 20 years old, and the car was originally co-signed with my mother, but I have since paid off the car. I am the only person on the list. I pay for the car insurance on my own and all other fees and maintenance. My father put a GPS on the car when I got it when I was 18 and living in his home. I have since moved out, and he refuses to tell me where the GPS is hidden, and I'm not able to find it. He will text me and comment on where I am or where I was, like, "How was the movie you saw? Staying late at work today?" And it scares me because he's an abusive person. I feel trapped, and this causes a lot of anxiety for me. I am so sorry you have to go through this. Surely there must be someone that can help you find where this GPS tracker is. And if he is abusive, like you say, I don't know what else is going beyond his texting you, but definitely it's time to do some research on the types of GPS trackers and where they need to be. Maybe you can find someone in the auto industry who knows about cars and can figure out where this thing is. I hope you're able to find the help you need and be able to remove this soon. Story 4. Ex left me for a good friend, so now I'm going to meet and work for their favorite artist. Last year, my partner of many years, who I was ready to propose to and marry, and one of our good friends started getting far more close than I was really comfortable with during a period I was working long and hard to provide for us. She started getting distant, and they were cozying up. Eventually, they tried to guilt me into accepting a polyamorous relationship, which I wasn't cool with, and when I ultimately put my foot down on the idea, she ended up choosing them over me. My ex tried to turn the entire friend group against me, which didn't work but did scare me mentally, and I found out a lot of terrible things she had been doing, like using my money for parties and spending it on her current partner/ex-friend. She consistently trashed me on social media when I never talked bad about her, even after all the hurt and pain I went through. I went through a massive depressive episode that I'm still struggling with today, losing my business, sanity, and even my human will to live. It was the darkest time of my life for this and some other reasons. But I kept reminding myself that I have to outlive my enemies, and a life well lived is the best revenge one can have. So I set the plan in motion. There is a very famous DJ my ex has a huge tattoo for and absolutely loves more than anything. Besides Molly, probably. And her new partner is a massive fan as well. I believe they even traveled to go see said artist recently. Travel was a big thing I got her into. And while I had this plan for a while, I kicked into overdrive and finally got it done after finding that out. I worked many years as a videographer or photog in the touring music world. It was the dream that I eventually gave up to be at home more and focus on building a relationship as I got older. During my career, I worked with some decently known artists and built a few important connections. I opened my old contacts list and went down the rabbit hole until I was able to get in contact with the DJ's team and get set up to be paid handsomely for doing touring work, running fan meetups, managing their Instagram content, etc. My work and name will be promoted all over their socials for my ex and her partner to see, and you best believe I'll be taking plenty of selfies. And while my original motivation was pure spite, I am super excited to be following my dreams again and getting another opportunity to be creative, plus meet so many amazing new people on the road again. It sounds like you're growing beyond this relationship. Yes, it was out of pure spite, but you're getting back into something that you're doing for you, and that's great. And great that you're getting promoted and moving on with your life. I hope that becomes more the motivation for you to continue on with this and just leave the ex and that whole situation behind. Like you said, living well is the best revenge.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 5. Am I the a-hole for buying lower grade steaks while my in-laws visit and serving my mom and dad Wagyu? My wife and I live far away from both our sets of parents. We visit them a couple of times a year, and they visit us about the same. My mom and dad love food. They will buy pounds of garlic and leave it in a rice maker for a month to make black garlic. They plan their vacations around amazing restaurants. My in-laws are lovely people, but boiling chicken drumsticks is fancy for them, and they refuse to eat steak that isn't well done. I discovered this the first time I went to their home for dinner. I wasn't even asked how I liked my steak. Everyone got a well-done steak. It took me years to convince my wife to try a medium-rare steak. Now she loves them. I bought some beautiful prime steaks for them when they came over when we moved in together. I made them medium well, and I perished a little inside. Her dad took it back to the grill and destroyed them. So now I buy select grade meat. I've been buying some excellent quality Wagyu for when my parents visit. Not every single time, maybe once a year. My wife says I'm being an a-hole by not treating both families the same. I don't think I should waste my money on great food for them when I know how they'll treat it. Yeah, you're treating them the way they treat their food. They are not equal in this. One has a different attitude towards food than the other. And I kind of agree with you. You're putting out the money for this, and it sounds like you're not putting out money for Wagyu steaks every time your parents visit. So, yeah, you're kind of adjusting to their likes. And that's not equal. That's sort of treating them how I think they would want to be treated. Story 6. Hey, and the R word that I can't say. This story takes place about 8 years ago when I was in the 4th grade. Around the time when I was in 4th grade, I was diagnosed with a couple of different disorders, one of which being Asperger's syndrome. Because I had Asperger's, my family decided to file with the school district for something called an IEP, or an Individualized Education Plan. This plan was supposed to help teachers understand how they can help their students succeed. At the same time, I was also a very gifted student, and therefore was part of the gifted program at my school. There was only one teacher for each grade of the gifted program. The 4th grade teacher's name was Ms. B. Ms. B was not exactly known for her warm-heartedness. Instead, it was common knowledge among students that Ms. B only acted favorably to the students that she personally liked, most of which were girls. There were 2 boys in the entire class, myself and someone we will call O. Ms. B was very unkind to O and I, going as far as to get us suspended for taking too long in the restroom. This story begins on the first day of school. I came into the class, and we all had a nice little 4th grade introduction. Ms. B introduced herself, and everything seemed to be going swimmingly until Ms. B decided to put me in front of everyone. She told the class all about my IEP and how I was special, and she also told the class about the disability that I had. The whole class had a jolly old time laughing at my expense. After that, my school life became a living hell. Teasing me was all but condoned by Ms. B, and the whole class, including herself, took part. The 2 worst enemies that I have of Miss B, the 2 worst memories that I have of Miss B, were the following. The first was a day when Ms. B decided that I looked down on people and decreed that I was only to crawl on my belly in class. Being a young man with Asperger's, I didn't tell my parents about this because I thought for some strange reason that they would love me less if they knew about all of this. Strange autistic reasoning, I guess. The second memory of Ms. B's tyranny is one of my most painful memories. I was reading a book in the back of the class. Being autistic, I tend to get lost in books, and the outside world fades away. Apparently, Ms. B tried calling my name once, and when I didn't answer, she hatched a devious plan. From across the room, at the top of her lungs, she shouted, "Hey!" and the R word again. Unfortunately for me, I looked up and responded with a meek, "Yes?" The whole class laughed and laughed for what felt like forever. Ms. B thought she had her entire bullying scheme set out before her, and that I would do nothing in response. Wasn't it a shame that the school had recently installed new cameras in every room because of theft problems? Ms. B had a jolly time bullying me, and I grinned and bore it because I knew her atonement was coming. Finally, when she decided to reiterate to the class about my disability, my plan finally worked. I used my IEP-granted coping mechanism and left the room to talk with a counselor. I spent the entire afternoon explaining the abuse that I had taken from Ms. B and told the counselor that the cameras would prove it. Lo and behold, the cameras proved my point. Ms. B lost her job, and the district paid for me to go to a nice boarding school for kids on the spectrum. I may have had Asperger's, but that doesn't mean I was an idiot, contrary to what Ms. B thought. Unfortunately for her, I knew what a civil rights lawsuit was. Doubly unfortunate for her is the fact that she now helps pay for my college. Oh, wow, really? And I wonder how she's going about this. Is she seeing the error of her ways, or is she just getting more bitter about this? But I'm glad you got help in paying for college, especially nowadays. how expensive that stuff is now. But yeah, I mean, this wasn't a scheme though, but I'm really glad that this got resolved and she got the just desserts. Story 7. Getting kinky with my frigid roommate. I used to rent a room in my old roommate's condo. We generally got along, but he was a bit stingy and would get really retentive about certain things that affected me unfairly as a paying roommate. The biggest point of contention was the thermostat. I liked to be comfortable and would keep it at 70. He preferred 65 to save money, even though he was well off. I tried to compromise, but it descended into us each moving the thermostat when the other left. Finally, he put his foot down and said it has to stay at 65. Unfortunately for my roommate, I had learned about bimetallic strips that old thermostats use to gauge temperature. 2 different metals are back-to-back in a coil. As one expands more than the other, the coil unwinds and turns the furnace on or off. Knowing this, I agreed to keep it at 65, but I didn't agree not to put a teensy tiny kink in the strip behind the dial to change what 65 meant to the furnace. Several times he thought it's not stupidly cold in here and started obsessively checking the dial to catch me red-handed. He was so confused when it was exactly at 65 every time. Eventually, he started setting it even cooler to compensate, but with a subtle kink here or there, I managed to stay comfortable while keeping the peace. I mean, that's kind of cool that you're able to use some stuff to your advantage, but were you paying for the thermostat as well? I know you were paying rent, but were you paying for the heating? And this is kind of getting one over on someone who's renting to you. Yeah, I know there are a lot of landlords that are evil and everything, but maybe you should have talked it out or maybe put on a sweater. And this person's probably paying more for heating if you're not paying for anything. I think there's like a few things I would need a bit of a follow-up on before I weighed one way or the other. Story 8. OBGYN will not stop calling my dad to confirm appointments even though I'm 22. I'm in grad school, but still go to the same OBGYN in my hometown, out of familiarity and convenience. I was planning to switch once I finish school and settle down. I have my father listed as my emergency contact. For some reason, they keep calling him to confirm my appointments, despite me telling them 3 times to never call that number and to please call my cell phone instead. Things came to a head yesterday when they called to confirm my appointment for an ultrasound, and he canceled it without my knowledge. My father and I have a tenuous relationship, but that's not related to this situation. I will also be switching docs as soon as possible. This has to be a HIPAA violation, right? I can't imagine they're not doing the same thing to other women. This could get someone seriously hurt if they're seeking birth control or anything behind the back of an abusive parent or spouse. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't give legal advice and I wouldn't know who to report to, but if you're that concerned about other people, there are some other organizations you could report to about this, but I'm also glad you're switching doctors. Just keep yourself safe. And I know it's just a tenuous relationship, but someone else is probably going to have to give you some advice on who you would have to report this type of behavior to. Story 9. Back from college break to have nothing. My daughter, 19 female, had a group of high school friends for years. Fast forward freshman year college, and her new roommate became part of the friend group. I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer the same day she started classes that year. And as the year goes on, her relationship with some of these friends starts to have problems, but the roommate still seems solid, so they sign a lease for sophomore year. By the beginning of sophomore year, All of her high school friends, 4, have turned on my daughter, and she's struggling to figure out why. By the end of September, she finds out the roommate has been playing both sides of the fence and has ultimately sided with my daughter's old friends and continues to see them regularly. This, of course, creates a nasty living situation for my daughter, but she does her best to manage through. As time goes on, I come to find out that her friends turned on her because they felt that her emotional needs were toxic for them to be around. My daughter was having panic attacks about my cancer and other normal things, and was reaching out to her friends for someone to talk to, and they couldn't handle it. A few weeks ago, the roommate invited 2 of these friends to stay over. My daughter asked that they pick another time as she had work, and then an all-nighter ahead of her finishing her finals, and she didn't want to be in the apartment if they were going to be. The roommate ignored this request. My daughter walked into them after work and had a panic attack. The roommate looked at her and said, "See, this is why you have no friends when you behave like this. What do you expect?" This week, my daughter managed to find a way to move out before the roommate came back from break. The couch, the coffee table, the rug, the pots, and pan, the dishes, the shower, curtain, on and on. All of it was my daughter's. The internet, the electric, the water, all in my daughter's name. She took everything, moved out, and left the roommate to come back from break with none of it working and all of the shared space items gone. And left a note signed, "What did you expect?" Oh, I wish I could be a fly on the wall when she walks in. "This person's parent is going through cancer. And you don't and these girls are just being really selfish. It's time to go no contact and just move on and find a new support group and some new friends." And yeah, I know they've been friends for a long time. It's not that easy and everything, but you've gotten a big step taken care of, and that's getting physical distance from them. And great. And cherry on top, taking everything that belonged to you with them. They didn't realize how much of a presence you are in their lives physically, and I think either that or they just took advantage of it. But great first step.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.